Some crimes aren't committed with fists or weapons. Some are slower, quieter. They creep in with a smile, and by the time the damage is done, it's nearly invisible. This is the story of Aaron Blake, and how one woman erased him without ever laying a finger. A dimly lit art studio with paintbrushes scattered, a half-finished portrait on canvas, and a shadowy woman standing over a seated man, her hand gently on his shoulder. Aaron Blake had never been the kind of man who commanded a room. At 36, he lived a quiet life in Reading, Pennsylvania, a place where neighbors knew each other by name but rarely by heart. After a bitter divorce and years of emotional detachment, Aaron was finally stepping back into the world. He went to therapy. He took long walks in Knoll Forest. And one Saturday night, reluctantly, he agreed to attend a local art gallery opening hosted by a friend of a friend. That's where he met her. Rachel Whitman wasn't stunning in a traditional way. She was striking, sharp cheekbones, raven hair, and eyes that seemed to know your secrets before you spoke. She wore a vintage green coat and smoked clove cigarettes outside the venue, pacing like she couldn't be still too long. Aaron, fumbling for words, complimented the painting she was staring at. She turned and smiled, her gaze locking on him like a magnet. "You see the sadness too, don't you?" she said. From that moment, Aaron was caught in her gravity. Rachel was different. She didn't play games or hold back emotion. On their second date, she cried telling him about her childhood. By the third, she'd moved a few clothes into his apartment. Aaron's friends teased him about moving too fast, but he couldn't see it. For the first time in years, someone chose him, fully, openly, and with wild devotion. She said he was too good for this world, too soft for the people who'd hurt him. He believed her. The first red flag wasn't obvious. It came in the form of a question, spoken with a smile. "Why does your sister call so often? Isn't that kind of weird?" At the time, Aaron brushed it off. Rachel had a rough family history. Maybe she just didn't get how close he and Lindsay were. But soon, Rachel would be there every time Lindsay called, pacing the room, visibly annoyed. Eventually, Aaron started letting the calls go to voicemail. "It's just easier," he told himself. Rachel was warm, attentive, and completely immersed in Aaron's life. She knew his favorite teas, the stories behind every scar, and the playlist he listened to when he couldn't sleep. But her love came with quiet rules. Don't talk to your ex-wife. Don't hang out with coworkers after hours. Don't make decisions without checking in. "You know I just want what's best for you," she'd say, planting a kiss on his forehead after scolding him for ordering takeout instead of letting her cook. The apartment began to change. Rachel rearranged the furniture to make it flow better. She painted over Aaron's living room walls, saying the gray was too depressive. She bought new curtains, blackout ones, because she couldn't sleep with light. She said it was for both of them. But Aaron hadn't been sleeping much anyway. His job started suffering. Deadlines missed. Meetings skipped. Coworkers noticed the shift but assumed he was struggling post-divorce. Only Lindsay pushed harder. "You're disappearing," she said during a rare coffee meetup. "You sound muted." "I'm just tired," he replied. "Rachel's helping me through a lot." He didn't mention that Rachel had started suggesting he might be bipolar, based on his mood swings, his foggy memory, his moments of emotional shutdown. She even recommended a psychiatrist she knew. When Aaron hesitated, she reminded him that she loved him, that she wouldn't be here if she didn't care. He went to the appointment, came back with a prescription. Rachel monitored the dosages. When he stopped attending therapy, she told him it was for the best. "He was turning you against me," she whispered, curled against his chest. "You need someone who really understands your mind." Aaron stopped going out altogether. His apartment, once minimal and orderly, became a cocoon of Rachel. Her candles, her clothes, her canvases and paint splattered across the kitchen table. She kept him close. Needed, wanted, dependent. Then one Friday evening, Aaron's voicemail picked up for the 5th time in a row. Lindsay, increasingly worried, drove over. The curtains were drawn. His phone was off. Rachel answered the door, face flushed, eyes red. "He's resting," she said, blocking the doorway. "Rough day. Mental health stuff, you know?" Lindsay didn't believe her. But Aaron, when he finally emerged, just nodded and echoed Rachel's words. His voice was flat. His clothes hung loosely on him. He wouldn't make eye contact. That night, Lindsay began searching online. What she found shook her. Articles and blog posts about coercive control. Manipulative romantic partners who slowly chipped away at identity, reality, and support systems until their victim no longer recognized themselves. Most examples featured female victims. But the patterns matched. Exactly. She printed everything and dropped it in Aaron's mailbox. He never mentioned it. Aaron thought he was finally safe, finally loved. But in truth he was no longer living his life at all. He was living hers. Aaron stopped showing up, at work, at therapy, even at family dinners. He said everything was fine. But the lights in his apartment were always off. And when his sister knocked, the woman answering the door always had the same smile, tight-lipped, polite, and cold. 3 weeks passed without a single text from Aaron. Lindsay tried calling. No answer. She sent emails. Nothing. She even messaged him on Facebook, knowing how much he hated social media. Eventually all his accounts went dark. His profile photo was removed. His bio was blank. She called his job at the small CPA firm in downtown Reading. "He's on leave," the receptionist said, uncertain. "Rachel told us he's focusing on his health." Lindsay's stomach twisted. She hadn't heard that from Aaron himself. What Rachel hadn't told anyone, except perhaps Aaron, was that she had fully inserted herself into every corner of his life. His work emails were rerouted to a joint inbox. His phone now had a passcode she set up for security. She scheduled his appointments, spoke to his boss on his behalf, and, most worryingly, convinced him to drop out of therapy altogether. "She's good for me," Aaron told Lindsay one day, voice muffled through the front door. Lindsay had shown up unannounced. She wasn't leaving without seeing him. When Aaron finally opened the door, he looked thinner. Well, his once neatly trimmed beard was patchy. His eyes seemed dull, like the light behind them had flickered out. Rachel stood behind him, arms folded, watching Lindsay with the same practiced smile she always wore. "Don't stay too long," she said sweetly. "He needs rest." Inside, the apartment was eerily quiet. No TV. No music. Just a ticking clock and the faint smell of incense, something spicy and choking. The walls were now a dark green, and most of Aaron's framed photos had been taken down, replaced with Rachel's abstract paintings, each one splattered, chaotic, emotionally charged. "I've just been tired," Aaron said softly, as if rehearsing. "I needed time to reset." But Lindsay saw it clearly now. He was disappearing in real time. When she tried to hand him a pamphlet on psychological abuse in relationships, Rachel intervened with a sharp laugh. "Oh please," she scoffed, taking the paper and tossing it in the trash. "This isn't some Lifetime movie. We're just going through a rough patch." Aaron didn't defend her. He didn't defend himself either. He just sat there, hollowed out and passive. What no one knew was that Aaron had stopped talking to everyone, intentionally. Rachel would subtly point out the disapproval in his friends' voices, interpreting concern as judgment. "They don't think you're strong enough to manage your own life," she'd whisper. "They just want to control you like your ex-wife did." She'd pull him closer every time someone raised an alarm, framing herself as the only person who truly understood him. "You're safest with me," she'd murmur late at night as he stared at the ceiling. "Let's build our own little world. Just us." And Aaron believed her, because she isolated him just enough to make her voice the loudest in the room. Then the only one. She slowly began eliminating anyone who might challenge her control. Lindsay was the first to go. Rachel read a text exchange between them and accused Lindsay of trying to poison their relationship. "She thinks I'm unstable," Rachel cried. "She doesn't want you to be happy." Aaron, scared to upset either of them, stopped responding to his sister altogether. Next were his co-workers. Rachel encouraged him to quit his job, promising they could launch a creative project together. Open an art cafe, maybe? When he hesitated, she reminded him how much stress it caused him. How much his boss underappreciated him. How no one ever saw his worth. "You weren't meant for a desk," she said one morning, curled up beside him. "You were meant for freedom." So he quit. His days grew emptier. He barely left the apartment. Rachel discouraged Aaron's, saying she could handle everything. She controlled his finances, explaining it helped him avoid triggers. Even his diet changed. He ate only what she cooked, and she convinced him he was allergic to foods he'd eaten for years. All the while Rachel painted. Always painting. Sometimes deep into the night. The canvases became more disturbing. Violent colors. Faces without eyes. Shadows wrapped around small, helpless figures. Aaron would watch in silence, wondering if he was one of them. One afternoon, Lindsay showed up again, this time with backup. A close family friend who was also a licensed therapist. They rang the buzzer for 15 minutes before the apartment window cracked open above them. Aaron peeked through. "We just want to talk," Lindsay yelled up. Rachel appeared in the window behind him. She didn't yell. She didn't wave. She just stared. Then the window closed. A week later, Aaron's number was disconnected. The world outside had become dangerous, confusing. Inside, at least, things were predictable. Controlled. That's what Rachel promised. But Aaron couldn't shake the feeling he'd been buried alive, with the door locked from the inside. He thought it was just a bad night, until it became every night. Her moods turned like tides. One moment adoring, the next explosive. And in between, silence so suffocating it echoed louder than screams. Aaron Blake didn't know exactly when he started to feel afraid of Rachel. It wasn't a moment. It was a slow drip, a steady leak in the ceiling that eventually soaked through the walls. What began as adoration curdled into something tighter, heavier. Love twisted into obedience. At first, he convinced himself the problem was him. Rachel had moods. Creative minds are volatile, she often said. She'd explain away her bursts of anger as artistic temperament, flares of passion misunderstood by normal people. And Aaron wanted to believe it. He wanted her to be the beautiful mystery she once was, the woman who saw him, uplifted him, and promised him freedom. But now her affection came at a price. "You never listen," she snapped one night, pacing in front of the window. "When I say I'm overwhelmed, I mean I need you to be better." Aaron stood silently in the corner, holding a half-cooked plate of food she'd ordered him to remake 3 times. Each time she found something wrong. The texture, the salt, the energy of the dish. "I'm doing my best," he murmured, eyes low. "Your best isn't enough," she screamed, throwing a fork at the sink. It clanged hard and echoed through the apartment. After that, she started disappearing for hours at a time, leaving no explanation, no phone calls. When she returned, she'd re-enter as if nothing had happened. A kiss on the cheek. A soft, "missed you." The silence in between was punishment, though she never admitted it. Aaron's anxiety spiked. He tiptoed around her moods. He rearranged his days to match her sleep patterns. He no longer played music unless she approved it. He stopped journaling. She once found an entry and accused him of turning her into a villain. The notebook was burned in the sink that same night. "Writing is a weapon," she said with a smile. "Only one of us is qualified to use it." She'd laugh afterward, tousle his hair, and kiss his temple. "Don't be so sensitive, babe." But Aaron was sensitive now. Too much so. One night, while cleaning the spare closet, he found a box labeled Rachel's letters. Inside were pages upon pages of handwritten notes, unaddressed, untitled. They weren't love letters. They were confessions, rants, threats. I could make him disappear and no one would ask questions. It's not a lie if you believe it's true. People trust beautiful women. They never look deeper. Aaron thinks I'm broken. But he's the one I'll remake. Aaron's hands trembled as he closed the box. He didn't confront her, not directly. He began watching more closely. Her patterns. Her contradictions. The way she spoke to the neighbor in a syrupy tone but scowled the moment the door shut. The smile she wore at the grocery store that vanished like a switch flipped once they were in the car. And then one night it happened. Aaron couldn't sleep. He wandered to the living room, tiptoeing quietly to avoid waking her. But as he passed the bedroom, he heard her voice, whispering. Not to him. He pressed his ear to the door. "I told you I'd take care of it. He's not going anywhere. He thinks he loves me." There was a pause. I said, "Trust me. If he tries to leave, I'll make sure no one believes a word he says." Aaron stepped back, heart racing. Was she on the phone? Or was she talking to herself? The next morning, she greeted him with a wide smile and pancakes. Her behavior was warm, doting, and unnervingly sweet. He didn't eat. Over the next few days, Aaron tried to regain some sense of control. He called his old therapist from a burner phone, asking to meet discreetly. He deleted his texts after each message. He didn't know who Rachel spoke to or what she was planning, but he knew now, he was being watched. Every choice was calculated. One evening, as he was leaving for a walk, Rachel stepped out of the kitchen and blocked the door. "You never walk at night," she said, tilting her head. "Where are you really going?" Aaron's mind raced. "I just needed air." She stared at him, her eyes flat. "Are you lying to me?" "No," he lied. "Good," she whispered. "Because lies mean you're not ready. And if you're not ready, I'll have to fix that." He didn't walk that night. The next morning he noticed something else. His ID was missing. His debit card gone. She claimed she moved them for safekeeping. His backup phone had vanished. "You don't need that anymore," she said. "You've got me." Aaron realized the door was never really locked. But somehow he'd stopped believing he had the right to open it. He waited for her to fall asleep. He'd packed only what he could carry. But when Aaron turned the doorknob, it was already locked from the outside. And she was standing behind him, with that same chilling smile. Aaron Blake didn't sleep for 3 days. His heart beat constantly against his ribs like a warning drum, and his eyes tracked every movement Rachel made. She had started using his words against him. "You're the one who said I'm your whole world. Didn't you say no one else gets you like I do? If you leave, you'll fall apart again." But it was Aaron who was falling apart now, inside her world. He had no ID, no cash, no access to his checking account. She had even convinced him to resign from his job weeks ago. "You said work was toxic, remember? I helped you break free. The terrifying part?" He had said those words. Or something close. Rachel had a way of rewriting history, twisting his concerns, his jokes, his outbursts into permission slips. Consent to isolate him. Authority to silence him. The final straw came on a Tuesday morning. Rachel had just finished a long cleansing ritual in the living room, burning herbs and whispering to herself in tongues Aaron didn't recognize. When she was done, she stood in front of him, sweat on her brow, and said, "Everything impure is now gone. You're safe again. But if you bring in new poison, I'll know." He nodded, eyes hollow. That night, he made the decision to leave. Aaron waited until she was asleep. She always took Ambien, mixed with a glass of red wine. It knocked her out cold for hours. He had hidden a tiny drawstring bag in the bathroom's air vent, a burner phone, an old pay-as-you-go Visa gift card with $47.83 on it, a photocopy of his birth certificate, and a picture of his sister Lindsay. It wasn't much, but it was enough. He tiptoed through the apartment, shoes in one hand, bag clutched under his hoodie. Every creak in the floor sounded like a siren. He reached the front door, slowly, carefully, silently. The knob didn't turn. Locked. From the outside. His breath caught. Why would it be locked like that? Had she changed the deadbolt? Had it always been? Before he could reach for his phone, a voice drifted from behind. "You weren't really going to leave me, were you?" Rachel stood in the hallway, arms crossed, barefoot, eyes glassy but awake. Too awake. Aaron turned slowly. I needed air." She stepped closer. "With a bag? With shoes in your hand?" He didn't speak. "You're not well," she said softly. "You're spiraling. But I forgive you." Aaron's skin prickled. "Why's the door locked from the outside?" Rachel's face twitched just slightly. Then that same practiced smile reappeared. "I have nightmares. I started locking it so I could sleep without worrying about you hurting yourself. You forget things, Aaron. I'm here to keep you safe." The next 2 days were unlike anything Aaron had experienced. She didn't scream. She didn't cry. She love-bombed. She cooked all his favorite meals. She massaged his shoulders, told him he was glowing again. She quoted books they'd read, played their songs, and even suggested they take a road trip together, to escape this toxic city. But she never unlocked the door. Every window had a child-proof latch. The balcony door was jammed. She even moved his phone to a new location every morning. "So you can focus on us," she said sweetly. Aaron started to believe he might lose his mind. He finally got a moment alone when Rachel stepped out to pick up a special cleansing elixir from her herbalist. Aaron didn't waste a second. He pulled the burner phone from the vent, ran to the bathroom, locked the door, and dialed his sister Lindsay's number. She answered on the third ring. "Lindsay, it's me. Don't talk. Just listen. I need help. She's locked me in. She's not who you think she is. Please come. Don't call her. Just come. I'm at." The call ended. The battery had died. Rachel returned home earlier than expected. Aaron tried to play it cool, but something in his demeanor tipped her off. "You did something," she said, voice dangerously calm. Aaron shook his head. "You did something." She turned the apartment upside down. Pillows. Drawers. Inside the vents. When she found the burner phone, her face contorted into something inhuman. She smashed it on the floor, once, twice, 3 times. Then she did something Aaron never expected. She sobbed. Big, loud, guttural sobs. She fell to the floor and screamed, "You said I was different. You promised you wouldn't hurt me like the others." Aaron just stood there, frozen, watching a woman unravel. But even in that moment, even in her most vulnerable performance yet, he saw it. One eye slightly open, watching his reaction. She wasn't crying. She was calculating. She didn't need locks to keep him prisoner. She just needed him to keep doubting himself. He found the photos hidden beneath her bed. Dozens of him, sleeping, working, crying. Some were taken when he thought he was alone. Others, from years before they ever met. It was a Thursday. Rachel had gone out again. Another sacred herbs errand, which Aaron now suspected was just a ritual to give him false moments of freedom. But this time she left in a rush. No locked doors. No watching eyes. Just silence. For the first time in weeks, Aaron walked through the apartment as though it didn't belong to her. He searched, not for a way out but for the truth. What he found changed everything. It was under her bed, inside a storage bin labeled winter clothes. What Aaron found was not a scarf or a pair of gloves. It was a series of manila folders, photo albums, and USB drives. He opened the first album, and nearly dropped it. A picture of him. At a gas station. 4 years ago. Before he'd ever met Rachel. He flipped to the next. Him at a bar, laughing with friends. Another. Him jogging in his neighborhood. Page after page, angle after angle. Dozens. Hundreds. He was being watched, long before he even knew her name. His hands trembled. The USB drives contained audio clips, recordings of their conversations. Some recent. Others from early dates. Even one from a therapy session they did together, secretly recorded. There were also journal entries. All written by her. He blinked twice when I asked about his mother. That's fear. Abandonment. He'll need reinforcement. Tonight I cried. He didn't know why. That's good. Confusion is a pressure point. He is mine. He just doesn't know it yet. Aaron's stomach churned. This wasn't love. It wasn't even an obsession. It was methodical. Clinical. A predator documenting her prey. Aaron quickly shoved everything back and raced to the door. But it was too late. Rachel's key turned in the lock. She stepped inside, saw his face, and immediately knew. What did you touch? Aaron said nothing. Aaron. What did you touch? He backed away. You were watching me. For years. She exhaled, slow, controlled. I wasn't watching. I was choosing. Don't you understand? You're special. Special? He snapped. You stalked me. You broke me down. You made me doubt my own thoughts. She smiled, and it chilled him more than any scream. Of course I did. That's how love works. Real love rewrites who you are. Aaron made a break for the bedroom, snatched the photo album, and bolted toward the door. But Rachel moved like she'd been waiting. She slammed it shut and pressed her back against it. You want to leave? She whispered. Then you'll have to tell the police what you did. Aaron froze. Because I'll tell them everything. How you yelled. How you hit me. I have bruises. You know I do. And who do you think they'll believe? For a moment he believed her. That's how far gone he was. That's how powerful her manipulation had become. But then he remembered something his sister once told him during a late-night phone call before things got really bad. If you're asking yourself whether it's all your fault, it's probably not. Aaron straightened up. You're sick. Rachel laughed. I'm honest. That's more than I can say for anyone else in your life. Aaron held the album to his chest and stepped toward her. If you call the cops, go ahead. Show them the photos. Show them the recordings. See who they believe. She didn't move. Or, he said quieter, let me leave. Right now. And I won't come back. And this story ends here. The silence between them stretched for what felt like hours. Finally, Rachel stepped aside. Aaron walked out. No police were waiting. No trap doors sprang shut. Just him, the photo album, and the suffocating cold of the outside world. But freedom didn't taste like relief. It tasted like ashes. He escaped the apartment. But he hadn't escaped her, not really. Because Rachel Whitman wasn't done with him yet. 2 months after he left her, Aaron was found unconscious on a motel bathroom floor. But the letter beside him? That was no suicide note, it was a confession. Just not his. Aaron Blake disappeared again, but this time, it wasn't by Rachel's design. It was 2 months after he'd walked out of her apartment, holding the photo album, his heart racing. In that time he went no contact. Blocked her everywhere. Changed his number. Took a leave from work. Moved into a small motel outside Allentown under a different name. Just enough distance to catch his breath. But Rachel was never far. Lindsay filed a restraining order on Aaron's behalf when she learned what had happened. With the journal entries and photos, it seemed like a solid case of stalking and psychological abuse. But there was a problem. Coercive control wasn't easy to prosecute. Aaron's bruises were invisible. His scars bled silently. The DA said it was a civil matter, until things got worse. One morning, motel staff found Aaron unconscious, barely breathing, with an open pill bottle and a sealed envelope. Inside was a handwritten letter, 1 page. But the handwriting wasn't his. You win, Aaron. You always win. But you never saw me for who I really am. I gave you everything. I made you a better man. And this is how you repay me? Don't worry, I'll let them know how much you hurt me. Goodbye. It It was signed Rachel. But Aaron was alive. He had vomited before the pills took full effect, likely from panic. The paramedics said he was lucky. Others called it divine intervention. He called it war. When Aaron awoke in the hospital, 2 detectives were waiting. They asked questions about Rachel. He gave them everything, the photos, the USB drives, the recordings. This time they listened. Rachel hadn't just manipulated Aaron. She'd forged medical records, called in false wellness checks, even convinced a co-worker Aaron had threatened her. But her biggest mistake was the letter. Handwriting experts confirmed it was hers. She'd staged a suicide attempt to frame him, not knowing he would survive to expose the truth. Rachel Whitman was arrested 11 days later on charges including stalking, coercion, unlawful surveillance, and attempted manslaughter by proxy. The prosecution painted her as a high-functioning predator who thrived on psychological domination. Court records showed she had done this before, twice. But Aaron was the only one who had come close to dying, and the only one who kept every piece of evidence. During trial, she showed no remorse. She even tried to spin the story, claiming Aaron was mentally unstable, that he had recorded her. But the jury didn't buy it. She was sentenced to 15 years without parole. Aaron never returned to accounting. He changed his name, moved to Oregon, and started working with a nonprofit that helps male victims of psychological abuse. He speaks at schools and shelters now. His voice still shakes sometimes. But he's no longer afraid. He survived her spell, but it came at a cost. And in the silence after the storm, Aaron Blake became the voice for men no one believed until now. Crimes of the mind don't leave fingerprints, but they do leave casualties. Aaron Blake's story reminds us that victims of coercive control can wear any face. If you or someone you know feels isolated, manipulated, or afraid, speak up. Help is real. If this story gripped you, check out our other deep dives into psychological crimes and shocking survival tales. Subscribe to the channel and click the bell so you never miss the truth behind the headlines.